Conservative Leader Pierre Poilievre secured 87.4% support in his leadership review over the weekend. That's a massive number, but not a simple one. Tonight, we're not asking whether it's good or bad, but we're just simply asking what it unlocks and what it exposes all of us to.
Now, Eddie, Poilievre gave a campaign-style speech to party faithful in Calgary for his leadership review this past weekend. Here are some excerpts from that speech.
Thank you to the great grassroots Conservatives who work and unite here today. And welcome to my hometown of Calgary. Great to be home, in the beating heart of the West. A land filled with treasure. A land of oil and honey. The place that taught me my great values. Opportunity as big as the sky, where a handshake and a word is a man's bond, and where a hard day's work is its own sermon. When newcomers arrive in this country, just as it has always been, we will ensure that they leave differences at the doors. We will deport criminals, end fraud, end abuse and handouts to phony refugees. We will no longer allow foreign conflicts to spill onto our streets. We must unite to end anti-Semitism and the attacks on our places of worship. And stand with our Jewish friends and neighbors who are under attack like never before. We want Jews to feel comfortable and safe. They should be able to wear the Star of David, put up the mezuzah, and wear a kippah everywhere and be proudly Jewish all around. Only Canadians could carve the world's best country out of a big, cold, vast land, because we never give up, we never back down, we never run away, we stand united, tonight, together, always, because this country, its people, and promise are worth fighting for, because while some say this is as good as it gets, we know the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Very campaign-style speech. I watched the whole thing live Friday night, and there are a couple of things that, at least watching it on TV, first of all, he was a little more relaxed than what you normally see him, and the speech was very conversational in tone in a lot of ways, although he did have his key talking points, and he did hit the key talking points, and he hit, as you heard, a number of hot button issues in the country, for sure. And but what I didn't, you had the people lined up behind him on stage with the placards and waving them and clapping almost at everything. And you had, especially what you could see of the first, 10 maybe rows along the front and of the stage and around the stage. You could see the excitement there. And when you had a pan of the whole area, after the first couple of rows, it was pretty much in darkness. It was hard to really see people. But my own impression when the speech had ended, I was sitting there thinking about it, and my own impression was, I didn't feel the excitement and push, if you will, in the rest of the audience.
Yeah, I guess what you're trying to ask as well, which is something I picked up on too, Gary, is did you feel that he was actually speaking to you, or did you feel that he was talking at you? Because that's always a question that you and I discuss amongst each other whenever we hear any sort of provincial leader, municipal mayor, or even people on a global stage. When they get up to a podium, are they speaking to you, or are they just speaking at you? And when I first saw Mr. Poilievre, I wasn't exactly sure how to take it. And then I rewatched some of the clips the last couple of days. And I just got the sense that, I was really rooting for him. I was pushing for him to change his approach. And we talked many times on our shows that, we'd really like for the Conservatives to actually put a candidate out there that all of Canada can relate to and vote for. And I just didn't feel that for the majority of his speech, he was addressing me or speaking to me as a Canadian citizen. Once in a while, it was there, but he just kind of went back to the, how should you put it, the character set or the mode of the speech that was actually put in front of him. So I just don't feel that he particularly connected with me. I was hoping he would. I just didn't get that feeling, Gary. Is that what you're trying to define?
I know what you're saying. I didn't feel a connection either. Yeah. But as I say, it was a campaign-style speech, and he was campaigning for his job, for sure. That was part of it. But he was also hitting, again, the hot-button issues for a lot of Canadians. And the only time it seemed to be a little bit more relaxed and maybe trying to talk to the crowd was at the beginning when he was talking about his mother being there. But then he goes off, and you knew where he was leading up because he was talking about his mother chasing around town with coupons when he was a kid and trying to get the best deals at each store along the way. And you knew where it was going. It was telegraphed way too soon, way too soon. Mm-hmm. And I think he lost the moment at that point, to me anyway, that he lost the moment for that. So that was one of the impressions I had. Now, yesterday he released a video on social media, and then it came out about he was asking the Prime Minister for an urgent meeting, which apparently he did have. But I went in and I had a look at the video that he released yesterday, and I did pick up a clip. So if you haven't seen it, this will give you an idea of what it was about.
The message from our convention is that Canadians want to turn hope into results. Our people want to return to a time when a trip to the grocery store was carefree and even fun, when they could have a full stomach, full fridge, and full bank account all at the same time. They want crime-free streets again and a self-reliant military and economy. Now, we're a country in crisis. That's why about a week ago I wrote the Prime Minister offering to fast-track policies for an affordable, safe, self-reliant Canada. I've not heard back, so I'm seeking an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss how Parliament can quickly reverse the food price crisis, the crime crisis, and the dependency crisis Liberals have caused. I'll bring practical solutions and an openness to hear other ideas and work together to fast-track results. The time for judging the Prime Minister by his words is over. It's time for results.
So picking up on the speech, really, elements of the speech, and then putting it out again that, I wrote to the Prime Minister and I haven't heard back, and he slipped that in actually nicely.
Very subtly.
He did it. Yeah, it was. Yeah. That was a good little, and that one I'll give him marks for sure. But beyond that, again, he was hitting the hot button topics right now, and he does have some solid points as far as especially the dealing with the price of food at the moment, and we know it's a hot button point because the segment from last week's show that we broke out as a separate video and then put out some reels and shorts, on Facebook. There's one reel coming out of that the last time I looked, it was at 12,000 views. So it's in a lot of shares. So it's that is it's critical. And we come back around to the grocery assistance program that was announced, and down the road, the increase in the GST. It's again, I saw it referred to today by a commentator, I believe it was, that it was, much the same as Trudeau's GST-free holiday. Remember that started just before Christmas last year and carried into, I think it was the middle of February.
Right.
And how much of an impact did that have? Not a whole lot. And when you break out the actual amount of money that a family's going to get versus the cost of groceries, how much really per week will that help them?
Well, yeah, and it's exactly what we said last week. I mean, something is better than nothing. I think we can all agree with that. Is it going to make a tremendous impact to families that are struggling with, grocery bills and utility bills and rents and whatnot? I'd be hard pressed to say yes. But then, by the same token, and you know what, you and I agree that what Mr. Poilievre just said, he's hit some really critical, serious points. I don't think you and I even disagree with him that these are critical and important points that need to be addressed, and let's have solutions now type of thing, right? I get that 100%. So above and beyond what Prime Minister Carney has put on the table, I think we can agree we would like to see more. Nobody's in disagreement. The one thing I would have liked for Mr. Poilievre to say, which is something he did not say in his last campaign very often, or do very often in his last campaign, and he kind of reiterated the same statements this time, I'd like to see Canadians get A, B, and C. Well, I would have loved to have heard, here is how I propose on potentially doing it. He didn't even give it a little blurb, nothing at all. And he did not spend any time at all during his campaign getting to any minutia or details as to how he's going to approach those problems that, quote unquote, were a direct result of Trudeau's incompetence. And we can agree or disagree on that. It was a very, very difficult time for Trudeau. But yet he had all that time in the opposition in pointing fingers and complaining and saying there has to be solutions. And the Conservative Party doesn't agree with this, Mr. Trudeau. But not once did he take the opportunity, and he's great with a camera, Gary. Both you and I know it's very difficult to find a camera he didn't like. Not once did he say, on point A, this is how I would fix the problem if I was leader. Gary, I'm telling you, if he actually went down to that level, I believe that his chances on evolving his political career to the next step would benefit him if he actually came out and proposed exactly what he's going to do. And again, he had the chance to do it, and he just didn't take it. And I really don't understand why. I think he's capable of taking the next step. He just seems to be reluctant to do so. Am I looking at this wrong, Gary? Or?
Well, we both acknowledge he was trying, after winning the by-election out in Alberta, to show a different Poilievre, and that lasted not that long. And then we were back to the same old style. Now, I will say one thing that surprised me was their new campaign manager, Stephen Outhouse, was all over the national media this weekend doing interviews and talking about, what the party's doing, how they're going to move forward from here on, and how there are changes that will be taking place. They need to make some changes in what they're doing and how they're explaining it and approaching it. So it's whether he's successful with Poilievre, I don't know. I don't know if Poilievre, I sense Poilievre does not feel comfortable going beyond what we have seen over the last number of years. That's about as personable as you're going to get. And Stephen Harper was a pretty stiff individual in a lot of ways. apparently people who know him and know him well behind the scenes, and people from all parties who know him and know him well behind the scenes say that he was relaxed. But on the outside, for the most part, he was pretty stiff when dealing with question period, when dealing with reporters,
Right.
and other things. It wasn't. You could tell that he really didn't care for some aspects of that, but it was part of the job. So I'm going to do it, and I'll do it. Do it to the best of my ability.
Right.
Whereas Poilievre is similar in that respect, but with Poilievre, I just there's a total disconnect. You see Harper being. It was 20 years ago today. This week was their last victory, I think it was. Anyway, they're celebrating, and his portrait was unveiled and to hang in the halls of Parliament Hill this week. And there he is the night before having a fireside conversation with, of all people, Jean Chrétien.
Mr. Chrétien, yeah.
Yeah. And the two of them, and the two of them had extremely good words for each other, very, very flattering, and they were sincere. You could tell they were sincere.
Yeah.
And Tom Mulcair, I watched him last night, and he had attended the reception as well, and he had some really very flattering things to say about Harper.
Yeah.
Somehow, unless there's a major turnaround, I don't see that happening with Poilievre.
Yeah, you know what? Quite honestly, Harper was very stoic in his approach, and sometimes you get that glitter of his personality. Didn't come out often, but sometimes it did. Look, I'll be quite honest. I know voting is supposed to be a personal thing and private, but I did vote for him. I literally did vote for him. And why? For the exact reason that I'm not seeing in Pierre Poilievre. When he spoke during the campaign trail, he didn't just poke holes at his adversaries like Mr. Chrétien on occasion. He says, this is what I am going to do to fix the government's problems, and here is how. He went to that layer that I was looking for, and you know what? He did reach me, and I did vote for him, and I very happily voted for him, okay? And like I said, I'm one of those that's going to vote for the best person to run the country during their tenure. And I'm always hoping that the Conservative Party, along with me and millions of other Canadians, could potentially put a candidate on there. And I was hoping it was Mr. Poilievre. Put a candidate out there that'll, keep Carney in check, keep the government in line, ask the relevant questions, and do what needs to be done to improve the country. And it's just me. I know our viewers can say, Eddie, you don't know what you're talking about. But this is just my feeling that he just hasn't reached me. And if he hasn't reached a common sense fellow like myself that will go both sides of the meter, how many other millions of Canadians out there is he not reaching that potentially would have changed the vote to the Conservatives? So it goes back to what we said the last two episodes, Gary. Very, very important leadership review that just went through. Pierre Poilievre has a resounding result that benefited him. The question is, did the Conservatives make the right choice to lead the party into the next federal election after they lost the last, 4 or 5? Have they got the right person in place? I'm not getting that feeling. Like right now, I wouldn't say, yeah, they did a good thing here. But I guess time will tell. Will Pierre Poilievre change, Gary? I don't know. It's hard to see it, but I'm rooting for him. I really hope he does, just for the sake of bettering our government. Like right now, if there was an election called within the next 6 months, I really don't think there's any chance of him actually sitting in the Prime Minister's chair anytime soon, unless he turns things around again, which is unfortunate. I'm looking at it as an unfortunate thing that he really hasn't stepped up to the plate and really describe what he and his party are going to do to make my life better, make your life better, and make the lives better of the individuals that he says are struggling under Liberal leadership for now and in the past. How he's going to make their lives better. You don't hear much about that.
Well, the other side of it is the Liberals have managed to open up about on an average 5 to 6 point lead over the Conservatives in the last couple of polls. And, a lot of people, and I agree, and that's kind of, I think, the result of Carney's speech in Davos 2 weeks ago. I think that's helped to put some distance between the Liberals and the Conservatives. And also, again, the preferred Prime Minister is definitely Carney by a wide margin now, a very wide margin. Now, Poilievre may pick up a few points or more in the next round of polling after his speech on Friday night. But here's the thing. 87.4% of the people attending, the delegates in Calgary, voted in favor of Poilievre. Now, There's going to be those on the outside who say, well, they basically made sure that they got the delegates stacked. They got the right delegates attending the convention. I've already heard questions about, why would you schedule a convention like that at the end of January in Calgary? Well, it looked like they had maybe a Chinook, because I saw a couple of interviews being done outside, and they weren't all bundled up like we were back here in the East, for sure. Yeah. But the other side of it is there are those who are, again, arguing, and it doesn't matter if it's a Conservative leadership review or a Liberal leadership review or leadership race. It comes down to there are party members who did not have a say, did not have a vote, because the voting was confined to the convention floor. But that's not any different than what has happened in the past on both sides from time to time. So I understand what they're saying, but I don't necessarily sing from the same page in their hymn book on that. However, if you remember a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, I said, give me a reason to vote Conservative.
I remember.
I was sitting there Friday night, had my bowl of chips and my beer, watching the speech, and wondering if I would have a reason to vote Conservative when it was over.
Drum roll.
And the answer is no.
No.
He's working on it. They've got some new people around him working on it. But there's a total disconnect for me. And certainly I did not see the reason to vote Conservative. So that ends my discussion on that one. That's just the way it is. And I know I'm going to get some hate. And that's all well and good. I have my opinion. I have a right to express my opinion, and I have expressed my opinion. And somewhere along the way, someday, the Conservatives may get a leader. Now, their new philosophy is, let's work together. And they did get an all-party agreement in the House to speed through a couple of the bills very quickly. And you know what? That should not be a major story coming out of Ottawa. That's what they're supposed to be freaking doing.
Right.
Is working. Yes, challenge the law to a degree, but stop with the political theatrics and stalling and everything. and get what you can and get the bills passed, get them out the door, get the laws in place or the programs in place for the people who are paying your salary. And it's good to see that, but it shouldn't have been such a big deal. Anyhow, that's a whole other conversation. So as I say, I don't have a reason to vote Conservative at the moment. And the way it's going, unless there's, I don't know, unless I win the lottery and all of a sudden there's a major change at the top of the Conservative Party, I won't have a reason until at some point down the road when Poilievre either steps down, retires, and they need a new, they go out looking for a new leader, and we'll see who that is. The other thing is, I'm not totally enamored with Carney of late either. Mm-hmm. And, here we have he's got one thing that the Liberals are doing once again, and where's the party membership coming, and what say does the party membership have when there are two candidates already appointed for either the by-elections or the federal election we're going to have sometime in May. Mm-hmm. Appointed. No call for nominations, no contest, and may the best person win. No. Head office says this is the person for here, and this is the person for this riding. And of course, one of the ridings they snagged the deputy leader of the provincial NDP in Ontario.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And when I see that, I'm thinking, what's this all about? Has she suddenly had an awakening, or what? Or is it all about what's in it for me and what can I get? Is she focused on one? She has an agenda of one or two items.
Right.
I don't know. I don't really know her, but there's. To me, I just, if you're going to have a political party and you want supporters, each of the riding associations, and yes, ultimately the leader has to say, well, I don't think this candidate quite meets what we're looking for or whatever. But you go through the process. We're in a democracy. It's a democratic process. You go through the process, and instead of appointing star candidates, or they think they're star candidates, let the local people choose who they want to represent them at the party level and to their, they're hoping at the parliamentary level.
Right.
So I'm not buying into Carney's, there are a few things that are starting to bubble with me, and I think he has to maybe take a deep breath, have a look around, and start paying attention to a few things, and a few things here at home.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before that he's got a lot on his plate, and I think both you and I were both critical of him a few shows ago. That he's got people that are working for him, and there are critical issues in this country that need immediate attention, and in fact, a lot of his attention. Although he's got a lot of things on his plate. Well, you know what? That's why you were elected Prime Minister of Canada, to be able to deal with all those pressures and manage your resources and your focuses on what the priorities are for the country. Perhaps you can't handle them all at the same time, but you can't just ignore a few of them and just kind of put them on the side until somebody starts screaming. So I think both you and I were somewhat critical of him being able to address the things that are really important to Canada as well right now. I know, take aside from all the threats to our sovereignty and so on and so forth, which is a tremendous priority, but you can't forget about, hey, let's take a look at what the issues are here back home that may not necessarily have anything to do with international influence. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that, and I think you're right, Gary. Even when it comes down to elections before any next federal election and getting the nominations going, I think that also speaks to something that we were also concerned about, and it was a conversation we had months ago. You know, when we have MPs crossing the floor, right? Well, what does that do in terms of the constituents in that riding and voters where they actually may not have necessarily been voting for the leader of that area or the candidate, the MP of that area, but they were actually voting for the fact that he was representing a particular philosophy through the political party. What? Exactly. All of a sudden, your vote doesn't count? This kind of, you know what? Why are we? So first of all, that there in terms of by-elections, it doesn't really follow a fair process, in my opinion. Okay, that's just my thought process. But then, on the other hand, you're speaking about going through the process and allow the citizens to elect who's going to be running in that particular riding moving forward is the right way to go. So maybe there's some balance in between, Gary. You know. So, I mean, this is not something I think one political party can fix. I think this has got to be a bipartisan effort by all political parties to actually sit down and take a look at election laws in this country to make sure that everybody's fairly represented during the tenure of one's vote over a course of 4 years. You know, you can't just drop your bag and say, "Hey, I'm going to be a liberal tomorrow." And yeah, last night I had a beer with the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, and then change parties the next day. I would not have been very happy with it. You clearly expressed that you were not happy. You wouldn't have been happy, Camper, had you voted for one party, then it got moved over to the other side. So you know, it's a long conversation. I think there's just another element that has to be addressed by both parties, and this would be great if we can get the Conservatives and Liberals to put a plan in place that later on down the line during the next mandate that you know there are rules put into place that make it more difficult to cross the floor without consequences. Because that's what's happening right now. Cross the floor, zero consequences. So well, we'll see how that pans out. It's just one of many problems that's one of many problems this country has, and doesn't necessarily mean we are not a country with a lot of wonderful things working for us at the same time. But who doesn't have problems, right?